Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, November 10th, 2023. Time for another show. And happy birthday, Bert. Yes, stepdad's birthday today, November 10th. Card probably, hopefully getting there. Still in transit. I don't know. But we've still been having difficulty with, what's his name? Louis DeJoy and the postal delivery system. Not great, but we got a late start on it. But not that late, so there's some chance. Happy birthday, regardless. And we move forward from there. Oh, yes, right, also. Yes, everything's a little scattered this morning. But probably a lot less likely to be listening is my nephew who shares a birthday. So this is always an interesting situation. In fact, I have two nephews who share birthdays with my parents, which is really kind of crazy. But at any rate, and I don't want to identify anybody that they can be picked out of. The adults don't mind quite as much. But at any rate, happy birthday to all who are celebrating. Millions of Americans share the November 10th birthday, but we weirdly share two of them in this family. So happy birthday to everyone and who is listening. And then if you are speaking to people who are not listening, whose birthday it is, you can tell them happy birthday as well. Yes. Okay. So I think we're covered, except for Sam, whose birthday is today as well. I don't know you and you're not listening, but somewhere, statistically speaking, it's your birthday. I hope you're enjoying it. And statistically speaking, you are. So that's good news. All right. Everyone loves statistics, and that's because we're all statists at heart and authoritarians, I suppose. And that's why we still have Donald Trump hanging around. No other real explanation for it. Many things happening, though, that we need to catch up on, including, I guess still some fallout from the elections. I have two, count them now because who knows whether I'll play them or not, two recorded segments to share with you today. Why? Because I've had them sitting here for a long time, and I keep saying, today's the day I'm going to play them, or I'm going to play one, and then I'll play the other one the next day, and then here it is, Friday. Friday is a great day for recorded segments, though, because it doesn't matter what day you record it. I'm going to probably use it on a Friday, because I'm all alone, all on my lonesome, here on a Friday, and it makes for a nice break, and I'm used to having some help getting through the show every other day of the week, and I could use it today, too. So I will. And one of them's long, and one of them's short, and one of them's Rosalind McGregor, and one of them's someone brand new, I think. So that makes for a good mix. All right. So some things I wanted to share with you. There are many. No particular order, but we'll see what we can do about making a story out of it, nonetheless. I wanted to start, as I start most days, with an interest in an Amanda Marcotte article. That's just the way it is. I should probably, just give her the show at this point. But she's busy and writing things, so probably doesn't want it. Anyway, I liked this approach, as I like many of her approaches to any issue. But this one rings a bell with me. It's about, I guess, the election fallout for Moms for Liberty, which... Good. I'm glad. I'm glad they came out the way they did. Greg shared with us the spreadsheet that was circulated yesterday of all Moms for Liberty endorsed school board candidates that this person who compiled the spreadsheet could find around the country, and illustrating just how badly they did. And they needed a comeuppance, and they've got part of it, and we have to keep going with it. But this reminds me, as Greg reminded me yesterday, of their association with the Proud Boys and other weirdos who really, I had a feeling they had to have a comeuppance at some point, but somebody would have to do the political organizing to make it work, and thankfully the people who stood up to Moms for Liberty locally, and it wasn't even I don't think it was like a national resistance movement against Moms for Liberty, the way Moms for Liberty became a national movement. You could franchise essentially Moms for Liberty, and start it wherever you were. If you were the kind of an idiot who thought that was a good idea, you could get a package in the mail. You got the candidate in a box, except you were a candidate for school board, and the box was full of Moms for Liberty garbage. But between them and the Proud Boys, I had to figure most people, just normal people, just really don't want the Proud Boys barging into their school board meetings and PTA bake sales and disrupting things and punching people because they think they might be trans, or I swear to God, I saw a litter box in one of those classrooms. And you can't, how long were people going to tolerate this nonsense of wacko idiots barging in? And I think just probably about a year ago, I remember just sort of, I don't know, I guess you would call it informally workshopping things. I think Oliver Willis was involved back when we were all still on Twitter, and he was like, these meetings are for proud parents, not proud boys, and it's like we got the seed of something going here. But clearly the feeling was widespread. No one wanted to be intimidated ever, but much less at the local school board, bake sale, PTA type meeting situation. And it's worse than ever. Republicans, I guess, think they have the franchise on this mama bear idea that, they as parents are willing to go to any lengths and they'll fight hard for their kids. When you're talking about their kids, they're going to protect them. And the reason that resonates is that that's fairly universal. And when the Proud Boys show up, many of whom have no kids, certainly no kids whom they support in any way, and show up because they want to fight and they think suburban parents are wimpy and they'll be able to beat them up easily. I guess it just doesn't go over all that well. Well, anyway, I bring that up because of the headline that Amanda has got, whether she put it there or not, on her piece for Salon, and it starts with a quote, "I'm so tired of these psychos. I'm so tired of these psychos. Moms for Liberty is now a toxic brand." That's the headline. The subheader reads, "Last month, Salon reported on one town's fight over a right-wing school takeover. Tuesday, the resistance won big." I wonder if I read that article or not. I can't remember. Probably. I'm usually interested in these things. But here's today's, a quote, "We have more people. That's a huge part." Jane Kramer, a mother from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, that's where we'll be concentrating today, explained to Salon earlier this year that she felt good about the ragtag team she'd helped assemble to boot Moms for Liberty, the well-funded conservative parents' rights group. Remember, that's the catchphrase that Youngkin found worked well in focus groups. So here we go. Now everybody is going to do parents' rights. Well, this is the ragtag team that Jane Kramer wanted to assemble to boot Moms for Liberty off her local school board. "We're not organized in the best ways necessarily, but it kind of all fell into place," Kramer told me, "and we're all obsessed a little bit." And, if you face them well organized, you can only trounce them even better. But basically, I think the story behind this is, even without the most sophisticated organizing system in the world, the revulsion brought about by these psychos, red-faced, yelling, screaming psychopaths who come and scream about, "I once saw a kid with long hair, and I swear to God, this one thinks he's a cat," and, there's kids in the basement of a pizza place, whatever it is. It's QAnon psychos dressed up as Moms for Liberty, whatever. It drives people up the wall. You don't actually have to do that much work to convince people that they want to pitch in to get rid of them. There has to be some, but the motivating work is already done. Moms for Liberty motivate people to hate them. All right, I will continue on here. Amanda writes, "Last month I published an investigative report about how Moms for Liberty, a group dedicated to rewiring American education toward the far right, had taken over the Board of Education in the Penridge School District, about half an hour outside Philadelphia." Let me click through on this piece and see if I ever eventually read. I think so. I recognize it, but I don't remember whether we read Amanda's piece or something quite like it, or maybe one of those days we said, you'll like this, go read this article, Moms for Liberty meets its match. Parents in this swing suburban district are fighting back. That was an October 10th piece. Now, we have the results. Moms for Liberty, a heavily funded AstroTurf organization linked to GOP leadership, wasn't especially subtle in its strategies, pinpointing a handful of swing districts in purple states like Virginia and Pennsylvania, and targeting school board elections, which are usually low turnout and easy to win. Once installed, Moms for Liberty members started banning books and pride flags, as well as protesting that teachers were, quote, grooming kids with, quote, smut, which usually meant either a history book or an acclaimed age-appropriate fiction novel. The idea to create moral panics, that was the idea, to create moral panics around sex and race that could tip national elections toward Republicans. Well, it backfired. As I reported, the parents in the Penridge district, eager to fight back against right-wing radicals, formed the Ridge Network and got the word out, arguing to voters that the group was degrading the quality of the public schools. And here's a good thing, a good key to it, right? If this were Republicans putting this idea forward and having it work, you'd have Chris Rufo make $1 million, be made chancellor of the college or whatever down in Florida. You know, this would be franchised to every district. But as it is, you know, we just have to discover it for ourselves and then raise our own money and whatever. But the thing is, it's organic. It feels organic, and everybody will recognize the value of it. So there you go. It's degrading the quality of the public schools. And that also, by the way, is their idea. They want to do that. That way they can point to degraded quality of public schools and say, see, what we need here is vouchers and homeschooling or private schools or what have you. And they want to get rid of public education. And just as they say, well, we want to shrink government, so we'll run it so poorly that people will turn against it and then favor reducing it, they just have the same game plan for the schools, essentially. So, this week, those efforts paid off. Democrats won all 5 of the open school board seats in that district, wresting control away from Moms for Liberty. There's an embedded tweet about that with the names of the candidates running for the Penridge Community Alliance seats on the school board. And congratulations then to all of them. Carolyn Scarino, Leah Foster Rash, Chris Raufman, Bradley Merkel Gump, and Ron Wurz. They're all pictured here in this tweet that's embedded in the piece. Kramer, on her TikTok account, celebrated. And here is the video, and, you can tune in or click through and take a look. It looks like they're having a good time. By the time this election rolled around, Moms for Liberty seemed to have already realized their brand had become poisonous. So they knew. They weren't unaware. As the Daily Beast reported, in 2021, Moms for Liberty claimed credit for 33 seats in Bucks County. But in this election cycle, the group endorsed only a single candidate in the county. They didn't, candidates didn't want their name weighted down by it, apparently. That's interesting. The Philadelphia Inquirer reports that some Republican candidates wanted the group to keep its distance, fearful of the taint. And that was my sense of things in the Penridge district this fall. School board members who had links to Moms for Liberty tried to downplay it and ended up getting outed by investigators from the Southern Poverty Law Center. I like it. The school board election is the latest in an escalating series of victories for the Ridge Network and other resistance efforts in Pennsylvania. Last month, the Democratic-controlled state legislature held hearings about the threat of book banning, allowing parents and educators to speak out. One of those parents, Darren Laustson, there was an extra S in there, told Salon that his attempts to expose backdoor book banning at Penridge, which involves books mysteriously being, quote, checked out so that students couldn't read them all year. In late October, he won a lawsuit against the school district over what the judge called a cover-up of such secretive book bans. Interesting. But Laustson isn't resting on his laurels. He's out there raising awareness of the radicalism of Moms for Liberty. He recently tweeted a story about Moms for Liberty activists demanding the arrests of librarians for letting kids read young adult novels. My goodness. Adding by himself, and this is where the line comes from, I am so tired of these psychos. Yeah, well, I can agree with that sentiment. That sums it up pretty quickly. That's bumper stickerable. I'm so tired of these psychos. People, it may take a little work for everybody to recognize which psychos you're talking about, but anyway, it's punchy. I'll give it that. So, yeah, arrest of library. The conservatives always fall back on arrest. Everybody who does something that I disagree with should be arrested. Anyway, it's remarkable how swiftly Moms for Liberty became such an albatross organization. As many Penridge parents complained to Salon, much of the initial media coverage of the group was credulous, buying into the false narrative that it's a grassroots group of normal parents who are simply, quote, concerned about liberal, quote, excesses. In reality, the group was founded in 2021 by the wife of the chair of the Florida Republican Party and was immediately so well-resourced and fully staffed that it could only be they were propped up by secretive, wealthy donors. And it turned out to be true, I guess. The suspicious aura of money around the group was interesting to journalists, but what really damaged Moms for Liberty was that they underestimated the intelligence of the people in the communities they were targeting. The parents of Penridge were not fooled by attempts to characterize literary fiction as, quote, pornography. Local residents also feared that rewriting history classes to adhere to right-wing mythologies would ultimately harm the school's reputation, which could hurt both their property values and the ability of their kids to get into good colleges. Does anybody know any parents who care about that stuff? Above all, multiple parents expressed a belief that schools should be preparing kids for the real world. They worried that right-wing whitewashing of history, social studies, and other courses would leave kids without the basic skills necessary to thrive in a diverse, dynamic society. I get the sense that was a lot of what was behind the resistance, I suppose you could call it, here to the Youngkin program and the proto Moms for Liberty here in Loudoun County. There's a fair amount of concern about maintaining property value and decent schools because, it's a big public school system here and everyone makes use of it. A lot of, I guess we keep hearing about Loudoun County, the wealthiest per capita. Everybody, a lot of well-off people here, but not a lot of people who are well off enough to be floating a mortgage for a gigantic house and 2 cars and some private school for the kids and then college after that. So there's a pretty heavy dependence on the public schools here, and they're pretty good. I mean, they've done a very good job running them. They're not the best in the country or anything. We can't boast on that, but they're pretty decent schools. They do a pretty good job, and they have a lot of options. And there's the magnet schools and the Academy of Sciences, and you have access to the Thomas Jefferson School. I mean, it's crazy. They have a fantastic public education system here in Virginia, and don't even get me started on the colleges. Virginia has, I think, probably one of the best, most robust public colleges and public university systems going. I mean, I guess California has everybody beat. They got the world beat with what they have available. But I guess what really amazes me about the education system in Virginia is the different types. Like every state, of course, has its own public universities, but in many states, there tends to be one main place with 100 bazillion students, and it's an enormous place. And if that's not for you and you want a smaller place, less options. But in Virginia, they've done a terrific job. And, of course, Republicans are like, well, let's get rid of that, because why people will want to move to Virginia and start businesses and raise their families here if the schools are terrible and they have to pay twice as much to educate their kids and then have to send them out of state in order to get them a decent college education. Can't wait. Let's start. What if we also wrecked people's property values? Those are like the two main concerns, the things that people live for. I'd say here in Virginia, but probably everywhere. That's the point. That's suburban America. That's top-notch worries. And what happens when there's a group of busybody, a-hole, weirdo, QAnon-loving wackadoodles come to your local meeting and scream until they're red in the face and take over and start ruining it all? People push back. So they did. So congratulations. Moms for Liberty's membership, by the way, is not handling the rapid dramatic decline of their organization very well. Judd Legum's tweet is embedded here saying the Moms for Liberty activist who reported Florida librarians to law enforcement claiming that they were committing felonies has accused me, Judd Legum, of Antifa-style tactics, whatever that might be. I guess Antifa files a lot of public records requests, because that was my tactic. He's talking about Jennifer Tapley, as it happens, and that's you can see that in his embedded tweet. I did see those reports. Yeah, there it was some video taken of one of these wackadoodle Moms for Liberty actually standing in the library demanding that the cops come and saying, arrest this librarian. She's giving porn to minors, and she's got a young adult fiction book there where maybe who knows what happens. And it never matters because none of it's pornography, but they love to stand there and insist that it is. And I guess that she's got video of, now there's video circulating of her looking like a complete idiot and the cops saying, find a crime, leave us alone. Moms for Liberty was started in a fairly obvious manner, Amanda continues, to help boost the national prospects of Republicans. So it's a delicious irony that in 2 short years, the organization is mostly known as a symbol of the MAGA extremism that is driving down the overall popularity of the GOP, leading to yet another election cycle where Democrats overperformed expectations. It's 2 in a row. The group was meant to put a family-friendly gloss on right-wing extremism, and instead they got parents and teachers, many of who barely have time to work and care for their families, to become political organizers. Messing with people's schools was not, as it turned out, a genius political strategy. So, good points, well made, and of course we come away with the line, I'm so tired of these psychos. So well worth it. And we head back to the treasure trove in pocket and see what we have in store. All right, let's see. First break coming up. Let's see. Well, cutting it close, so I'll try and remember early in the next segment that we have our recorded segments, and we'll try and bring them to you. Let's see. I can add this. I guess the original Moms for Liberty wackadoodle screamer, Murdery Trader Green, is up to more nonsense in the house, as she doesn't do anything else, trying to find her way back into the good graces of leadership and the National Republican Party. You know what? I have more for you on that subject. And guess what? It's from Amanda Marcotte. And guess what? It's from a couple weeks ago, so I have to scroll to find it. But we'll get back to that in a minute. But Murdery Trader trying to make herself relevant again and has latched onto the one trick. The only danger of teaching members of Congress how procedure really works is, well, the big danger is that it, what the hell is this? I got it. Hold on. I'll tell you what's going on in a second. But the only thing that, the real problem is they learn the one trick. And then they, how can I disrupt the floor? Well, a single member can move to vacate the chair. All right, well, we'll all start doing that. Okay, well, but there's other things privileged resolutions can do. So a single member can move a privileged resolution to censure someone, as she tried to do with Rashida Tlaib, to expel someone, to impeach someone. So she's discovered all of that, and so she realizes now, leadership can't stand in my way. I can make myself super duper quadruple famous by moving to impeach everybody in the Biden administration one at a time. I'll be the impeachment lady. So anyway, despite protestations from the rest of the Republican Party in terms of like, hey, we have actual work to do. There's a government shutdown coming in a week, and we got to get through all these appropriations bills. She still, anyway, said, well, my thing is more important. I need to have a vote on impeaching the Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, because household name. Everybody wants him gone, right? Among QAnon wackadoodle circles, they're very big mad about the Homeland Security Department because some people came here from another country one time, and so there you go. By the way, the thing that's distracting me, I have a story from The Hill about what she's up to lately. Green moves to force vote on Mayorkas impeachment. So that's happening. But what was interesting that was distracting me was a pop-up ad. But you know what? Screw that. Let's go. It's fascinating. But let's talk about what Murder Trader Green is up to. So here we go. The Hill reports that on Thursday, she moved to force a vote on impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, reviving an issue that had largely fallen by the wayside as the GOP remains divided on its impeachment authority. Of course, they remained divided on who was going to be the Speaker of the House for like 3 weeks. So the privileged resolution, which requires swift action, and we all know why, accuses Mayorkas of, quote, willful admittance of border crossers, that big crime and or misdemeanor, and says that he has a duty to protect the U.S. from an, quote, invasion, which really, if there's an invasion, it's not really the Homeland Security Secretary's responsibility. That seems like more of an army kind of a thing, but whatever. Anyway, Murdery Trader Green, not really on top of her game. And remember that her game is being a YouTuber. That's what she does. That she happens to hold a member's pin and a voting card, but at heart she is a YouTuber. Green also accuses Mayorkas of violating the Secure Fence Act. You ever heard of it? It's a 2006 law that demands perfection at the border by declaring the border operationally secure only if no people or contraband improperly ever enter the country, ever.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All right, I'll give you the rest of the story about what Murdery Trader Green is up to, just because she's a wackadoodle, and we were talking about wackadoodles. And by the way, during the break, I found like 15 other Amanda Marcotte articles that I have to read to you. So, the Amanda Marcotte Show today. I don't know if I'll get to any of them, but what can I tell you? Always a good read. Okay, so we left off where Murdery Trader Green had used the privilege resolution, the privileges of the House loophole to insert herself back into the center of attention and try to impeach Mayorkas, and found also along the way a rather stupid sounding law, the Secure Fence Act, 2006, earlier than you would have thought. So George W. Bush administration, George W. Bush era. And it actually apparently says that, it'll be our policy that you can't call the border operationally secure if anybody or anything improperly enters the country ever, which is a pretty stupid standard. I'd love to know how we ended up passing such a dumb thing. And then goes on to say in her resolution, Alejandro Nicolas Mayorkas, in his inability to enforce the law, has engaged in a pattern of conduct that is incompatible with his duties. Oh, this is in her voice, really. It should be incompatible with his duties. She has a weird accent. It's not Georgian. As a civil officer of the United States. The United States. I'll not sit here and listen to you badmouth the United States of America. This is basically the resolution. Mayorkas has pushed back against claims that he has violated the law. Claims that even GOP lawmakers worry would set an impossible standard, although you probably passed the dumb thing. The Secure Fence Act, specifically the statute, defines operational control as not having one individual cross the border illegally. Under that statutory definition, no administration has achieved operational control, Mayorkas said, sounding a little too reasonable, when appearing before lawmakers in July. But they were having none of it, I tell you. Obviously, a layer of reasonableness must be applied here, he told lawmakers last year when he was asked about the law. But he was talking to the wrong people. Oh, we have to have some reasonableness. Oh, well, how about this? We have Murdery Trader Green instead. YouTuber at large, and you're going to get impeached. Well, I don't know. I don't know whether he really will get impeached or not, actually, but she'll certainly waste one or more of the 7 days remaining before the next government shutdown, insisting that everybody reject her stupid idea. So, all right. Well, anyway, he says you have to have reasonableness. Republicans say, no, you don't. But he goes on. And looking at that definition through the lens of reasonableness, we dedicate 24,000 personnel at the border. We are surging increased personnel, facilities, and other methods of support. And in my opinion, operational control means maximizing the resources we have to deliver the most effective results. No one wants to hear that. But here he is trying to be reasonable and level-headed in front of a panel of idiots. But okay. The Department of Homeland Security and congressional Democrats have cast the effort as improperly using impeachment over policy differences because Mayorkas has not committed high crimes or misdemeanors or any crime as required under the Constitution. And by the way, even if you take the Secure Fence Act at its word, okay, now we can't say there's operational control of the border. There's no criminal statute here, right? There's no crime involved. It doesn't say, and then, therefore, the Department of Homeland Security chief will be personally liable for it and shall serve a term of no more than 20 years and be fined no more than $250,000. There's no criminal penalty attached to not meeting the definition of operational standard from the Secure Fence Act of 2006. But, like all, QAnon, wackadoodle, Moms for Liberty, Murdery Trader Green, idiot types, they say, well, there's a law and you're not living up to it. Therefore, that means you're a criminal. You broke the law. You didn't break anything. And so you need to be arrested. And again, a child's understanding, a dumb toddler's understanding. I mean, I'm sorry, kids, but you're going to need an education. There are some dumb kids, right? We don't like to tell them that to their face, and we try to do everything we can to educate them and bring them along. No child shall be left behind. Ooh, what if a child is left behind? You broke the law. You're under arrest. Moms for Liberty should all be under arrest for leaving a child behind. But anyway, instead of continuing their reckless impeachment charades and attacks on law enforcement, or shall we say charades, because we may be talking to some British people out there, and I don't want them getting shirty with me. I actually skipped the beginning of the explanatory gobbledygook from DHS. While the House majority has wasted months trying to score points with baseless attacks. I mean, this is all true. This is the actual position you should be taking, but it's so boring. Anyway. Secretary Mayorkas has been doing his job and working to keep Americans safe. You just wish that the statement would be, first of all, this is being brought by Murdery Trader Green, and she's a effing idiot. Secondly, I say, as deputy spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security, she also has a team of idiots who don't understand what the effing F anything has to do with anything. They don't know what they're doing. They are running around like a bunch of idiot kids who raided their parents' liquor cabinet and trying to run the government that way. We shouldn't be responding to this at all. They should, we should just wait, and they'll crash their pickup truck into a tree and we'll be down with them. That's the resolution we're looking for here. But no, instead of continuing their reckless impeachment charades and attacks on law enforcement, Congress should work with us to keep our country safe. Well, that ain't happening. Build on the progress DHS is making and deliver desperately needed reforms for our broken immigration system that only legislation can fix, except they don't know how to do that. Green called the impeachment measure to the floor as a privileged resolution, which forces leadership to take action on the measure within 2 legislative days. The House left Washington on Thursday and is scheduled to reconvene Monday evening. So it'll be sometime next week when they're really effing busy. They got to take an hour minimum out to deal with this nonsense. Her move to force a vote on the Mayorkas impeachment resolution tees up another tough decision for Speaker Mike Johnson, who was elevated to the top job roughly 2 weeks ago. Leadership can bring the legislation to the floor, motion to table the measure, move to table the measure, or refer it to committee, each of which would require a simple majority vote. When did they change motion into a verb this way? I don't know. I mean, you make a motion, and he'll say on the floor, not necessarily Johnson, but whoever does it, well, I move that, we table the measure. Not I motion to table them. I make a motion, perhaps, to table, but I don't know what's going on here. We'll have to ask General, who's the Attorney General now? Garland. We'll ask General Garland about whether or not this is right. Anyway, Green said she called Johnson Thursday morning, but did not talk to him. So this is like my kids, right? Well, did you call your professor and arrange a meeting? No, but I will. Well, then you haven't finished your job, have you? He wasn't there. I left a message. Anyway, this is the number one priority, and it can't be ignored, Green said of impeaching Mayorkas. There shouldn't be anything else. There's a government shutdown coming in a week. But she wants that to happen, so she can stand there confidently and say, blah, 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 something. Anyway, I'm tired of waiting on everyone, she later added, but too effing bad. You're one person out of 435. But I'm Murdery Trader Green. I have a YouTube channel. You have to listen to me. I mean, it's too annoying for words. Republicans have long targeted Mayorkas over what they see as a failure to secure the border and claims that he lied to Congress, a matter stemming from an exchange with a lawmaker during which he was cut off from responding, as well as his general defense of his handling of the border. In a hearing last year, Mayorkas said in response to a question from Chip Roy that the U.S. did have operational control of the border, adding, and Congressman, I think the Secretary of Homeland Security would have said the same thing in 2020 and 2019, meaning, Trump's guy. After the GOP took control of the House, lawmakers began jockeying to be the first to initiate impeachment proceedings. Representative Pat Fallon of Texas did so right after former Speaker Kevin McCarthy's multi-round effort to secure the gavel, prompting Andy Biggs to note that he was the first to introduce the idea the year before. Everyone's going to fight about it. But the idea has floundered as the GOP remains split on whether they want to pursue impeachment, with Mayorkas appearing to fall by the wayside as the House moved ahead with an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Lawmakers in the past have cautioned against this idea, either because it may not secure the votes or out of concern for rushing the process, which is really the same issue. Expressed differently. Well, I think you rushed the process, so I'm not sure I want to vote yes on this. There are still some people who take impeachment rather seriously, but it's interesting that they all had the idea, but no one could get it to the floor. And that was because, interestingly, they all actually listened to their colleagues and find out that no one really wants to do it and it's going to be a flop, so let's not waste any time. But not Murdery Trader Green. She says, to hell with all of you. I work out. And I want you all to see it. And so also something, now you have to listen to me. That doesn't make any sense really, but apparently that's kind of how she lives her life. I guess you got to hand it to her. Here's Pat Fallon and Andy Biggs are standing around with something they have that she doesn't in their hands. But I was the first to think of it. Yeah, well, why didn't you do anything about it? Because I didn't want everyone to hate me. Well, that didn't work, but it's a good idea. It's a good thought. You don't want everyone to hate you. Guess who says who delivers the line when it comes to impeachment proceedings that might not work? The old line of, we don't have the votes. Remember that? Used to be Steny Hoyer used to say that about efforts to impeach Republicans. But now, of course, these are Republicans trying to impeach Democrats. We don't have the votes is actually delivered in June by Matt Gaetz, which is interesting because back in June, he probably thought he didn't have the votes to get rid of McCarthy either. Green's resolution jumps ahead of an ongoing process from House Homeland Security Chair Mark Green, who's going to love this, who has accused Mayorkas of dereliction of duty and laid out a multi-part plan to review the secretary's work, something he plans to hand off to the House Judiciary Committee, which oversees impeachments. But murdery traitor Green, with an E, jumped in front of Homeland Security Chair Mark Green without the extra E, and she said she did not talk to the chairman about her effort to force a vote on the impeachment resolution. That's her thing, I guess, is not talking to the speaker about bringing it to the floor, not talking to the chairman about jumping ahead of him, not talking to a lot of people, except to her YouTube listeners. Representative Michael McCall of Texas has cautioned against rushing an impeachment without first making the case. Despite his own impassioned criticism of Mayorkas' job performance, still, as chair of the Homeland Security Committee in 2013, he warned against adopting the very standard Green is now using to home in on Mayorkas. When you put this number as a metric in the definition of operational control, you make it impossible to achieve operational control. Once again, Republicans designing a way to fail for themselves. We need to show that government can't do things, so therefore, we will go ahead and not do them. Okay, and then we'll show everybody how ineffective we really are. Perfection shouldn't be the enemy of the good. That's the old line, and he pulls that one out. But it really, what you're talking about here is perfection should not be the standard. It's just dumb. It's not that it's an enemy of the good in this case. It is, but I mean, that's not the major focus. Perfection is a stupid standard. That's just as good a line as enemy of the good. Anyway, under this definition, again, we will never get operational control because nothing in life is 100%, he said at the time. Green's, with an E, the murdery one, current push is already dividing the House GOP conference. And, well, why would you not want to keep dividing them now that they've united behind a new speaker? Don't know. Can't think of a good reason. Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas announced Thursday that he supports Green's efforts, writing in a statement, "We're sick of the Biden administration's refusal to crack down on border security. We're tired of feeling unsafe in our communities, and we're fed up with the Washington establishment that uses the border as a political tool." All right. But Representative John Duarte of California, who represents a district President Biden won in 2020, is pumping the brakes on Green's endeavor, telling reporters that he is not interested in these peripheral impeachments. If we impeach anybody, it's going to be up to Jamie Comer and the Judiciary Committee to decide that he's ready to move the impeachment inquiry to a full impeachment on President Biden, Duarte said. Pressed on the fact that the legislation targeting Mayorkas will come to the floor because of the procedural gambit used to force a vote, Duarte said, "We'll vote against it and move on." Green's move to force a vote on her resolution to impeach Mayorkas came one day after the Congresswoman said in a post on Twitter that two of her constituents, quote, were murdered by a human smuggler with a vehicle full of illegal aliens. Okay. The family that resides in her district was killed as the smuggler sought to evade police in a high-speed chase. Gonzalez said the accident took place in his district. So now we got to fight about whose district it's in. Green aimed her fury at Mayorkas, writing on Twitter, "This is unacceptable." Oh, wait, we have something on that. What did she say? Unacceptable! Exactly. I have to agree. It is unacceptable. And, of course, there was a car crash in Georgia, and Alejandro Mayorkas is personally responsible for it due to his failure to secure our southern border. Georgia, of course, having a southern border with no other country whatsoever. Anyway, Thursday morning, she teased her next move. I'm sorry, world, we can't defend your borders anymore. We have a severe national security crisis at our own border. I'm done with hearings, reports, and phases. Hearings, reports, and phases. What? The only answer is impeachment. It's time. She wrote on Twitter. Green's effort to fast-track her impeachment resolution is not unprecedented. In June, Lauren Boebert, of all people, used the same procedural gambit to force a vote on her resolution to impeach President Biden over his handling of the U.S.-Mexico border and immigration policy. Her resolution accused Biden of abuse of power and dereliction of duty. The House ultimately voted to refer the legislation to Judiciary and Homeland Security committees, shielding lawmakers from having to weigh in on the matter directly, but the timing of Green's push is not ideal for the House. Lawmakers are racing the clock to fund the government by November 17th or risk a shutdown, an effort that has proved difficult thus far in the fractious House GOP conference. So there you have it. You got all the news on that front. Time now for us to turn. I think maybe we can squeeze in our latest from, why don't we start with Rosalind McGregor, bringing us up to date on what's happening in Michigan. And I told you yesterday when Greg touched upon this story that we'd have more. So let's go in depth with Rosalind on this one. This is something she submitted to us back on Halloween, but it was too spooky and scary and haunting for me to play on that particular day, I guess. And now another Friday has rolled around. So here we go. Let's roll it out.
Good morning, David.
Good morning at last.
You've kept us informed on all the weeks of disarray at the national GOP in Washington, D.C., and I thought I'd share part of the disarray that's going on in the state GOP in Lansing, Michigan. Thanks to Jonathan Ustin at Bridge Magazine, we have this article. Jonathan writes, the cash-strapped Michigan GOP took on more debt when it used a loan to cover a $110,000 speaker fee for last month's Michigan Republican Leadership Conference, according to Chair Christina Caramo.
Wow, who got that money?
The state party used the loan to pay actor Jim Caviezel, Caramo told Republican activists Thursday night in Macomb County, where she and Chief of Staff Joel Studebaker spent more than an hour attempting to rebut internal party claims about their administration. Barely mentioned was the upcoming 2024 elections and how the state Republican Party, which already has serious money problems, will be able to help Republican candidates win the state house, congressional races, and an open U.S. Senate seat. While the biennial Mackinac Conference has traditionally been a fundraiser for the Michigan GOP, Caramo and Studebaker suggested the party would not have been able to afford Caviezel without the loan, and without him, they may have had to cancel the event or fail to fill hotel rooms at the Grand Hotel, where the party was already on the hook for a $150,000 bill. Caramo told reporters at the Mackinac Conference that she expected the party would at least break even on the event, but did not disclose the loan at the time, nor did she explain why filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza had canceled a previously advertised keynote address. Quote, we had a goal to raise money for the event, and unfortunately that did not occur, Caramo acknowledged Thursday. But at least it wasn't a drug fest like years past, she added. Unquote, suggesting the party saved money by not purchasing any liquor for the conference. Under a contract signed in 2012, the Michigan GOP is obligated to pay the Grand Hotel a $150,000 reservation fee every year until 2029, whether or not the party actually holds the Mackinac Republican Leadership Conference again.
Wow.
Businessman Vivek Ramaswamy was the only presidential candidate to speak at this year's event, which has traditionally drawn several top-tier candidates. But that was not for lack of trying, Caramo said, suggesting establishment Republicans who had been excised from the party discouraged candidate participation in order to see her fail. Quote, this whole deep state thing is very real, she said, unquote. The new Mackinac loan adds to the debt Caramo says her administration inherited when she took over the party from former chair Ron Weiser in February. As of April, that debt totaled about $641,000, according to Studebaker, who said the party discovered a previously undisclosed credit card balance at that time. Quote, fundraising has been a challenge, has been very difficult, unquote, Studebaker said. But he argued that Caramo's campaign pledge to focus on high-volume, small-dollar donors is the right plan. It just takes more time to materialize, he said. Karamo said, quote, "Our Republican elected officials betray us constantly because they are bought and paid for by forces that don't share our values," she said. "So the reality is that when we're trying to operate with integrity, it will be a bigger challenge for us to raise money," unquote. Studebaker urged GOP activists to end party infighting, which so far spurred physical fights at 2 state party meetings and led to misdemeanor criminal charges against 3 activists. Quote, "You got to be able to work together, and there's no way we're going to be able to do that if we keep giving liberal media interviews and keep walking through demonization schemes," he said. "The baseless claim of lies, of fraud, and nefarious intent are all a demonization attempt to disrupt and undermine the state party," unquote. So there you have it, David. The Michigan GOP is in a poor situation and is not going to be able to help candidates when they want election help in 2024. So that's good news for Democrats and
Certainly
for
is.
anyone who has been paying attention. Thank you so much, and back to you, David.
Okay, well, thank you. And useful and definitely great point at the end is all of this nonsense is not just laughing at them tripping over various body parts that they may or may not have available, but because it means in the end they're going to be unable to function as a party, that is, to help their own candidates run for and win election. And, well, one, that's good for everybody else in the country. And not just Democrats. It's good for everybody. I got to actually have some story. I didn't put this story aside, but it's something to mention. Is that, was it in Philly? Was it? Where they, I guess on the city council, they have a rule that I guess you can't have a unanimously Democratic or any one party membership of the entirety of the city council, that they actually set aside, I think, if I remember the story correctly, I'll have to go find it, the 2 seats for members of the other party, except, and so usually for years, that's been an overwhelming Democratic majority on the Philly City Council, but 2 sort of token Republicans who get thrown in there to voice the other side. But, I guess recently the Working Families Party has said, it doesn't say, wisely enough, it doesn't say that those 2 seats are reserved for the Republican Party. It just says another party that's not the majority party. We can run for those seats. And they did, and they won. And I think they had won one of them in the past, and now they ran for the second one. So now if I understand correctly, I got to go get the story. The city council is all Democrats plus 2 people from the Working Families Party. That's how unpopular the Republican agenda is. Even when they reserve seats for you, despite the fact that no one wants you, they can't win those seats. That's amazing. Let me see if I can find that story for you. I'll have to look it up. I just saw it go by on, whatever the social media platform I happened to be using at the time was. Let's see. I want to look at the news for their thing here. They're having their convention in Philadelphia. Dang. All right. Well, I'll have to search around and see if I can find it, unless one of you finds it first and sends it to me. Okay. So, thank you to Rosalind for bringing that story to our attention. They're, collapsing under the weight of having to have Cuckoo Karamo as their state party chair. All right. Lots of different directions that we could go in. Many stories I want to share with you, and so little time to do it. You know what? Let me try this one. Since I started with Amanda Marcotte, and on the wackadoodles that we can't stand anymore. Another angle, the abortion angle that we were originally focusing on, Jessica Valenti has written on, with a slightly different tack, I guess, on this, but similar to I'm so tired of these psychos. This piece, I'm going to have to get my sound effects ready, is called You, We Win. F you, we win, and we'll do it again. I kind of like the bravado here. So as we head into the top of the hour break, I wish I was the kind of person, Jessica writes, who wins gracefully. Really, I do. But when you spend a year writing about raped children being denied care and women forced to carry doomed pregnancies to term, you tend to lose your magnanimity. So, to every Republican politician who tried to keep voters from having a say on abortion, and to every anti-choice activist who worked to keep women under the government's thumb, F you. We win. I cannot begin to tell you the amount of joy it brought me to find out a little after midnight last night, meaning Wednesday, that Democrats gained control of the Virginia legislature. Because not only did it mean that abortion access would remain relatively safe in the state, but that the multi-million-dollar bet anti-abortion groups made on their much-touted strategy failed spectacularly. Remember, it was just over a week ago that Susan B. Anthony pro-life America president Marjorie Dannenfelser. Oh, okay. Oops, I accidentally hit the take me to another advertising button instead of the go away button. Anyway, just over a week ago that this Marjorie Dannenfelser said that Virginia is, quote, the clearest bellwether going into 2024. For the first time, I hope Miss Marjorie is right. SBA, Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, and other anti-choice groups may have seen our Ohio win coming, and more on that in a minute, but they really thought they were going to do something in Virginia. These people spent months training candidates to claim that bans aren't bans, and to attack their opponents for abortion extremism. Quite a nervy message, considering voters can see with their own eyes which party is forcing women into septic shock. And that's the thing. Conservative strategy relied on the idea that voters weren't smart enough to see exactly what they were doing. Just like Amanda said about the Moms for Liberty. The anti-abortion movement thought they could change ban to consensus, and suddenly Americans would forget about the last year of suffering. That's what's happened in Ohio, too. Republican lawmakers in the anti-abortion movement underestimated just how savvy and mad voters would be. They didn't understand that people weren't only motivated by abortion bans, but by the constant attacks on democracy. Ohioans watched their state leaders try every trick in the book, we told this story, to keep them from having a say on abortion. The absolute walloping Republicans took last night was a clear message from voters. We see you. Obviously, it wasn't just anger that drove people to the polls. Abortion rights activists on the ground worked their collective asses off to make these wins happen. They knocked on doors, phoned bank, talked to neighbors, friends, and family about what was at stake in this election. These incredible activists didn't stop for a second. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All right, let's see if we can get these things out of the way here. By the way, I did find the information on the Working Families Party story, and it was, in fact, Taniel who I probably brought it to my attention on Blue Sky the other day, saying, oh, fascinating result out of the elections on Tuesday. Philly reserves 2 seats on its city council to a party that isn't the majority party. So for a long time, the GOP has held them. 4 years ago, the Working Families Party won one of the seats from the GOP. Kendra Brooks, I guess, the winner in that one. And tonight, Working Families Party won both of them. So wresting it away from them, that is good news. And Kendra Brooks indeed won re-election on Tuesday and was joined by Nicholas O'Rourke as well. So that's pretty good news. No more Republicans left on the Philadelphia City Council. So now I can at least document that and back it up. But now, if I can find the right tab and remember where I was, we go back to Jessica Valenti, who was saying, yeah, the activists who organized for Tuesday's abortion backlash didn't stop for a single second, and the night's win belongs to them. So, if there's any message that politicians should take from last night's, Tuesday's, results, it's that abortion wins elections. And not just by a little. It's amazing to those of us, by the way, who grew up with the no, shy away from abortion. At best, you should be saying, well, we want to keep abortion safe, legal, and rare. We're hiding our heads and pretending we want to make sure that it doesn't happen. We're with you. We don't like it either. Yeah, that didn't result in much, did it? So reverse field. Anyway, as she says, abortion wins elections, and not just by a little. Ohio's issue won with nearly 57%. Considering the incessant attacks from GOP leaders, whether it was misinformation spread by a state-run website or getting a Republican-crafted summary on the ballot instead of the amendment itself, one vote over 50% would have been a massive win. Even in red state Kentucky, Governor Andy Beshear won in large part by focusing on his opponent's anti-abortion extremism. His campaign spent millions on an ad featuring a young woman, Hadley Duvall, Greg mentioned this, who was raped as a child. "This is to you, Daniel Cameron," she said. To tell a 12-year-old girl she must have the baby of her stepfather who raped her is unthinkable. Duvall was the first person that Governor Beshear thanked in his victory speech after thanking his family, noting that because of her courage, this Commonwealth, and they are a Commonwealth, is going to be a better place. And that's the other big win from Tuesday night, the messaging war. For years, anti-abortion activists and legislators counted on Democrats treating abortion like a controversial third-rail issue. Yes, a Kentucky candidate campaigning on abortion rights would be unthinkable just a year ago. Conservatives hoped that a few key wins last night would convince Democrats to stop talking about abortion so much. I think it's safe to say that's definitely not going to happen. And watching those hopes get dashed as results came in was a true delight. I just hope it happens again, I have to say. Abortion is going to be the central issue moving forward into 2024. I just wish it didn't take the end of Roe for politicians to figure out what feminists have been saying for decades, that abortion is a winning issue. Obviously, there's more work to do. Last night's wins don't help the people who are suffering in other states with abortion bans. And we know that Republicans in Missouri, Florida, and any other state considering a pro-choice ballot measure aren't just going to roll over. They've already been undermining democracy in the same way that Ohio Republicans did, and we have lots of big fights ahead. But for now, for today, and I guess today as well, today now being Friday, let's take some time to bask in Tuesday night's success. She's killing me with all these references to last night. Not just because we won, but because they lost. It's okay. You can be happy about that. And sometimes it's okay to be a sore winner. I'll endorse that for right now. And then say back to work on Monday. Okay, let's see. Other stories to share with you, and there are many. Gosh, so many different directions that I could be going in here. Where's the... I said I did put aside another Amanda Marcotte piece, but I'm wondering whether... as I was reading this Valenti piece, I was like, oh, you know what? That reminds me we should go to... I guess, yeah, maybe I had these things in mind. How long will this one take me to read? There's a Washington Post piece from Greg Sargent that I read the other day off the air. And so I actually remember there's something in particular that I really wanted to call out here. But I, there's no highlighter in Pocket. They really need to work on that. But he was writing his piece of November 8th, so that'd be Wednesday, right? Youngkin's disastrous night shows the rights culture war has fizzled. We've made this point, but it's an important one, and he had an interesting way of putting it, too. The Democrats' capture of the state legislature in Virginia on Tuesday is nothing short of humiliating for Governor Glenn Youngkin, who staked immense political capital on the races by making them straightforwardly about his ambition to pass that 15-week abortion ban he's championed. Maybe the dumbest thing he's ever done. But the GOP governor's comeuppance isn't just about the durability of abortion rights as a political winner for Democrats. It's also showing that right-wing culture warring on education, built around a parents' rights agenda, limiting school discussion of race and gender, has utterly lost its political potency, allowing Democrats to respond with their own affirmative liberal cultural agenda. It really has caught on everywhere. And around here, in Virginia, we saw that all the time. Although it was really interesting. By the end, Republican candidates were just saying, well, my first issue is education. It's all about education. And that for them, though, was a code word. It was never about things to do to improve educational outcomes, and we're going to spend more money, or we're going to build better facilities, or we're going to implement this program or that program. It was about yelling, screaming, getting rid of books, and telling kids what they can't study. That's not education. It's happening in the educational environment, but you're ruining the education. but that was their buzzword. Let's not say what we're doing. We'll just say we're for education because people are for that. But again, as both Jessica said on the issue of abortion and as Amanda said on the issue of education, the Moms for Liberty nonsense, everybody saw very clearly what they were up to. And it's a great thing to point out because not always is it the case that people are able to see through things that way. Anyway, back to Greg Sargent here. Strikingly, more than $5.5 million was spent on ads about education in Virginia legislative contests, according to data provided by tracking firm Ad Impact. While it's unclear what percentage focused on parents' rights, some Republicans modeled their campaigns on the way Youngkin turned that issue into a 2021 victory, an upset that led many pundits to declare education a political loser for Democrats, even in blue territory. Not this time, because it was never really about education, of course, so it shouldn't be too surprising. But not this time. In Schuyler Van Valkenburg's ouster of a Republican state senator, Siobhan Dunavant, in a district near Richmond, parents' rights loomed large because the GOP incumbent sponsored a law signed by Youngkin purportedly aimed at sexually explicit materials in schools that facilitated a rash of book removals. There are none. So anyway, Donovan accused her opponent of being willing to expose kids to such materials. But Van Valkenburg took this head on, running ads attacking the law and castigating book bans while reassuring voters that as a high school teacher, he knows the difference that one book can make for a child. But I would have said also, I know the difference between pornography and a regular book, too. I'm not a total idiot banning everything with words in it because there's a P and an O and somewhere else there's an R and an N in this book, and therefore it's pornography. That suggests it's politically potent to elevate the fight into a high-minded debate over the freedom of young minds to inquire. I don't know about that. Rather than letting Republicans drag it down into a muck of grubby accusations about porn in schools and grooming children. I know you definitely don't want to go there. He's right about that. But the better answer might have been in Amanda's piece there, that I don't know that it's really politically potent to elevate the fight into a high-minded debate over the freedom of young minds to inquire so much as it is. They're effing up your housing value and ruining your schools. The two things that are attached, the biggest determinant of how much your biggest asset is going to be worth in the future, everything you've invested, your whole nest egg is going down the tubes because they're going to turn your county, like we were in danger of being, Loudoun County, where we all had everything invested in our home values. All of a sudden, nationally, Loudoun County was like a laughing stock. You don't want to be in Loudoun County. They're teaching people upside down and backwards. They think everything is porn. They won't allow you to talk about slavery in the capital of the Confederacy. That's a joke. And people are going to shy away from moving there. And they're going to hear the name Loudoun County. It rings a bell now nationally, which is why I've been so upset and so insistent on reminding people Loudoun County hates Glenn Youngkin. Loudoun County defeated Glenn Youngkin. Loudoun County's handed him even more defeats in the face of everything he had, his whole reason for being politically. He threw in the face of Loudoun County, and Loudoun County in the face of that elected a 6-3 majority of Democrats on the school board, maintained Democratic control of the county board of supervisors, the very school districts in which the whole controversy of the sexual assaults was centered, had rejected Youngkin. He didn't win those districts either, not even inside of Loudoun County. And everyone needs to know that because their agenda destroys families and the values they hold dear, including the value that they have in their homes and their property and their local schools. There's nothing more kitchen table than that. And they're kicking over the kitchen table and setting it on fire and telling you, I'm your friend. We make decisions the same way. It's about family values, though we hate your family and we lowered all your value. So I don't know. I mean, Greg may be wrong in that, but he's right in other ways. Certainly, of course, how wrong it is to allow the Republicans to even get away for a second with ideas that this is about porn in schools and grooming children. Van Valkenburg said he encountered many voters who perceived the right's culture wars as not just a gratuitous attack on schools, but a broader effort to expand government intrusion into kids' education. The reason the book banning is so visceral is that it hits on both of those things, he told me. But I think it's also because it's visceral because it hits on the value of your house, your property, your biggest asset in life, plummeting because of idiots in your neighborhood. And if you can just purge them from government, things might rebound. Youngkin's first act as governor was an attempt to expunge critical race theory in schools, which of course wasn't there. That's true, although the other one was to get rid of the masks, which included a tip line. Remember this one? So the parents could report offending teachers. Delegate Rodney Willett, who won re-election in a swing district outside Richmond, said the tip line and the law facilitating book removals badly resonated with parents who have developed attachments to public schools as centers of community in the suburbs. Yeah. They're saying, we don't trust teachers. We're not going to give them autonomy in the classroom, Willett said of Youngkin and Republicans, adding that the voters regularly told him, we need to be doing everything we can to keep our teachers. Then there's Danica Rome. You've heard a lot about that because one of Greg's favorites too, right? A delegate who on Tuesday was chosen by voters as the first openly transgender state senator in the South. She defeated a Republican who campaigned on banning transgender athletes from high school sports, even though there are none probably. But she had every trans attack thrown at her, and she still won, said Heather Williams, the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee's interim president. These culture war issues that Republicans are trying to lead on, they're not where the country is, right? Like, who would have thought that in the face of all of this nonsense from the Republicans, that it would be a good idea to look for a promotion to the state Senate as a transgender candidate? And what does Danica Rome say about that? You're wrong. F you. Prove it. I'm going to fight you. And she wins. And just as I said around here, as our school board representative, in the middle of the huge national controversy about the Loudoun County schools and the Loudoun County School Board and the way they handled things, Atuza Reeser says, you think I can't run for higher office in the middle of all this? F you. You're wrong. You don't know where we are. You don't know where these people are. You don't know what they want. I do. And guess what? She was right. And now she's going to be a state delegate. And the whole campaign against her by the Republicans was, now she's looking for a promotion. Can you believe it? What nerve? Except she actually knew that people were ready for that and said, you know what? She performed admirably in the middle of withering attacks. Yes, I want her to have higher office. And now she does. In a state Senate race in suburban Loudoun County, Republican Juan Pablo Segura he learned the hard way, but he leaned hard into the school wars, telling everybody his top issue was education, of course. Vowing his top priority was to notify parents of any perceived interest in transgender identity by their kids. You can't have that, and you got to have immediate warning to the parents. Yet, Democrat Russet Perry, who congratulations on your win. I keep saying Russet Potato around here because it's funny, but we love Russet Perry, prevailed after stressing abortion rights and arguing that Youngkin-style culture warring is politicizing and destroying education. That's instructive because when Youngkin overperformed in Loudoun County in 2021, and can I just say for a second, he overperformed and still lost by double digits in Loudoun County. He got his ass kicked in Loudoun County. People were not happy about that. But there was some leakage, it's true. People were moved, at least temporarily, by his shenanigans, but he got killed here. But when he overperformed in Loudoun County, pundits gushed that he had cracked the code on how to wrap right-wing culture warmongering in non-threatening packaging. They kept that up all the way through the Tuesday night. Democrats, we were told, must reshape their educational stances to accommodate the explosive parental revolution that he had tapped into, even in the socially liberal suburbs. After Tuesday night, in which a slate of liberals won election to the embattled Loudoun School Board, and we elevated one of our Dems to the House of Delegates, that now looks like a serious overreading While the U.S. Supreme Court's 2022 Dobbs decision that overturned abortion rights undeniably shifted our cultural politics more than anything else, it's also encouraging voters to be more attuned to GOP radicalism on other fronts. Dobbs was the light bulb for a lot of voters on GOP extremism, making it harder to reach suburban voters with cooked-up cultural grievances, said Jared Leopold, a Democratic consultant in Virginia. It turns out that talking endlessly about critical race theory is not a successful way to win critical races. Wink. That's pretty good. Liberals shouldn't grow too hubristic about these developments. Ooh, no, we don't want that. I mean, you shouldn't. As Semaphore's David Weigel notes, have you heard of this gentleman? Republicans still ran ahead of where they should have in a blue state such as Virginia. But still, the right's culture warring fell dramatically short of the promise it held for Youngkin last time around, and the robust liberal mobilization in response shows no signs of going away. Good points. Well made. Let's see. Have we got time for we may have to run over into the last segment in order to make room for a rather long segment that we've had contributed and which will shift the focus somewhat. I wonder if I can make some sort of transition here in the next couple of minutes so that the next tape segment makes more sense. I don't know, because there's too much to share with you that you really have to hear about that, whatever, I think has value. So, okay, our transitional piece here will be the NBC News piece from Sahil Kapoor, similarly focused, I guess, GOP strategists. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, the fact that it was happening, which we thought was funny, urge congressional candidates to campaign against a national abortion ban. Disturbed by tough election losses on Tuesday, Republicans say the party needs to make clear to voters in speeches and TV ads that it doesn't favor banning all abortions. That's going to be a problem, of course, because they do. There's just a disconnect between where the politicians are and where their consultants are. The politicians are politicians in campaigns in a box. They think voters want no compromise. And so to them, the best position to stake out is I'm against all abortions, no exceptions. There's lots of people who actually run on that. I don't know if they really believe it, but they love to run on it. Well, okay, so what does Sahil have to say? A weak performance for Republicans in Tuesday's elections has sparked new waves of anxiety in the party. Isn't it great when the anxiety is on their part? And strategists are now urging their candidates to change course on how they discuss the issue in order to win competitive races this year. It's interesting. One, I love to see the shoe on the other foot. The hand-wringing is theirs. They're not sure of themselves because, we're always reminded, even when they are dead wrong and they all know it, they love to show supreme confidence in their position and never change it. And now the story is they're being advised to change it, which is amazing on a number of levels. But also, I'm not so sure how well it'll go over because these candidates that they have to work with are people who were raised on never admit wrong, never confess, never acknowledge being wrong, never change direction. It's a sign of weakness. We'll see how they do with the advice that they're getting from their consultants. 3 GOP sources told NBC News that party operatives fighting to win control of Congress are making a concerted push Wednesday to encourage Republicans to make clear to voters in speeches and TV ads that they don't favor a national ban on all abortions. The National Republican Senatorial Committee is encouraging Republicans to clearly state their opposition to a national abortion ban and their support for reasonable limits on late-term abortions, which are, of course, already banned, when babies can feel pain, which we don't know if they can, with exceptions, though, for rape, incest, and life of the mother when we don't care about pain, apparently. It was just never internally consistent. This, according to a source familiar with the NRSC strategy, they are encouraging candidates to contrast that position with Democrats' support for taxpayer-funded abortion without limits. So the problem, of course, is they're not dropping the lying part, which is actually probably what drives people up the wall more than anything else. The limitations are bad, but the lying is driving everybody crazy. Where were we with this one? Oh, yeah. So that means in campaign speeches and TV ads, the source added, who cares? All right. Well, anyway, Republicans are defending a wafer-thin majority. Can't really use that reference without thinking of that. Vomit, but okay. But defending a wafer-thin majority in the House in 2024 and are also looking to recapture the Senate. Democrats have a 51-49 majority in the upper chamber. Republicans need a net gain of 2 seats to seize control. They have multiple opportunities against vulnerable Democratic incumbents in red states like Montana and Ohio, if they're red at all, which voted Tuesday for a ballot measure to protect abortion rights. Senator Sherrod Brown immediately sought to capitalize on the vote late Tuesday. My 3 opponents, there are 3 Republicans running for the Senate seat, all of them have said they want a national abortion ban. They'll spend the next year denying it, of course, and they'll bring out the tape and show that they're wrong, and lying will drive people crazy. We got to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that's really my mission for the next 12 months. Stephen Law, the president of the Mitch McConnell-aligned Senate Leadership Fund, sounded the alarm on Fox News. The Democrats have blitzed the airwaves with, quote, unrelenting advertising to falsely accuse Republicans of supporting no abortion access whatsoever. And there wasn't a lot of response on the airwaves pushing back on that, Law said Wednesday. It's something that you have to dig into. You have to say where you are and why you stand for it, and that didn't happen enough to be able to turn back those attacks. They spent their money instead on lying about what the Democratic stance on abortion was, and then people said, you know what? I hope that's true. I'm actually for that. In the face of your lying. Democrats say GOP candidates are simply being held accountable for their own comments and positions. On the record and on video, Republican Senate candidates have already staked out dangerous positions that would make abortion illegal without exceptions. And we'll make sure voters see and hear them in their own words. And I guess Trump, too, thanks to the tape that Greg referenced yesterday. Well, anyway, that comment was from Tommy Garcia, a spokesperson for the DSCC, who added that candidate contrast in Senate races will power Democrats. Republicans have also tried and largely failed to flip the script by accusing Democrats of supporting abortion without limits and with taxpayer money. Law's group commissioned a deep dive of polling and focus groups on abortion by Axis Research earlier this year and found that the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision overturning the national right to an abortion had sharply changed voter perceptions. The term pro-life is perceived as support for a flat ban on abortion without any exceptions, the most restrictive anti-abortion position. That's Axis President Brenda Giannini, I don't know how you pronounce this, Gianini, wrote in a September 6th memo that was recirculated by Republican operatives Wednesday and viewed by NBC News. By contrast, pro-choice is seen as more middle of the road, because choice, who knew? It was designed that way, but okay. Finally, years later, that's the middle of the road position, adding the following warning. Considering this shift, it is critically important for U.S. senators to clearly communicate their position on abortion. Simply stating that an elected official is pro-life, say the Republican operatives, I guess that's Axis, will result in a distorted impression, and that official may be viewed as extreme. Syntactical error here. It is maybe. It should be 2 words, may be, not may be viewed. But, and there's no maybe about it. They will be viewed as extreme. Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel said GOP candidates need to address abortion head on during an appearance on NBC's Today Show. What I do think is our candidates have to talk about this. We can't put our head in the sand. We can't let Democrats define us, McDaniel said. We need to show humanity and compassion. I want more pregnancy centers. I want to make sure that there's less and less regulation and more viable ability to adopt. By the way, more and more pregnancy centers are more and more places where Republicans will lie to you about pregnancy and abortion and lure you in. And if you think you actually want to exercise your right to an abortion and you go to a pregnancy center, it turns out they won't do it and they'll try to talk you out of it or who knows what. Anyway, a GOP strategist working on House races said vulnerable members in the party should handle abortion with nuance, compassion, and empathy. And, you know, they were elected because they're anti-nuance. So I don't know that they're going to go there. Let's see. Susan Del Bene, Democrat, of course, of Washington, chair of the DCCC, said Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin trying to present his 15-week abortion ban as moderate, well, that flopped. And Democrats, of course, you know what happened there. We swept control of both houses. So, okay. I don't know that there's more information here, and we're probably not going to be able to fit it in in like the 30 seconds that remained before the music anyway. But, all right. The rest of it, a capable but already recited summary of what the results were. Just wanted to sort of let you know that, yeah, it is out there and on the record. Republicans are actually trying to hide from their own abortion record. And golly gee, how did it come to pass that pro-life came to be viewed as desirous of a complete abortion ban? Although I will say that it was Republicans who, I think, originally came up with the leave it to the states approach. So I guess they have a leg to stand on in saying that they're not for a national ban. It's just, well, the problem is the last 5 years they've been running around saying, we got to have a national ban. So they thought, though, leaving it to the states would actually win for them. And then it turned out, I guess as soon as they discovered that leaving it to the states meant actually losing state by state, they suddenly shifted to a national ban. And now that's even worse looking. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Net Roots Radio. Gosh, I don't know where to go next. I mean, I do, because there's 10,000 things I want to share with you. But let's see if I can't get through some of them very quickly so that I can bring you that last recorded segment that I've been waiting and waiting to bring you. But I did mention one that I might have to return to Amanda Marcotte like 10 times. But I bring this to you. Which one should I start with? I'll bring this to you as a follow-up to the discussion of Murdery Trader Green and her desperate attempts to get back in the spotlight. But before I bring that one to you, I wanted to throw in something else. No, let's go there, and then maybe we throw in the other thing just to give more added color to it. So this is Amanda Marcotte again, but this time from November 3rd, and again, invoking Murdery Trader Green and Lauren Boebert, and one other name that you might as well throw into the mix there, Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace, the headline says, learns the lesson of Lauren Boebert and Murdery Trader Green. MAGA is not for ladies. Yes, they're in it. They just don't realize what it's going to do to them, I guess. And I don't mean to say that because the ladies are so dumb. It's just, I don't know, just a warning from one woman to another, I guess, if you want to take it. They won't want to listen to Amanda, but, you know, this MAGA thing probably won't work out for you. GOP women, it says as a subheader, are supposed to be sexy but chaste, aggressive but submissive. It's a conundrum that can't be beat, and also, I guess, can't get you anywhere in the end. It reminds me of, what was that movie? A Total Recall in there, where the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of it, right? Anyway, I don't know. A little bit of everything. Anyway, here's the story. As she writes it, it's been a challenging few months for the ladies of MAGA in the House of Representatives. Even before she was caught on video getting handsy with a date in public in September, Representative Lauren Boebert faced a tough re-election having nearly lost her once deep red district in November of 2022. Now she's facing cringeworthy headlines like outraised and embattled, Lauren Boebert heads back to Colorado with a revamped campaign strategy. Even in this beat sweetener, the Associated Press reporter can't quite make vaping and groping with a date during a musical production of Beetlejuice sound like a mere embarrassing moment instead of a full-blown faceplant. Murdery Trader Green, once perceived as the far-right power behind the throne of Kevin McCarthy. But, of course, Kevin McCarthy, out. She lost some MAGA cred this year when she was ousted from the ultra-right Freedom Caucus. Then McCarthy lost his job as speaker, leaving Green cut off from both the mainstream GOP and the increasingly powerful radical right. So she's pulling this stunt. I think that's the context in which she's pulling the impeachment stunt right now. Now Green spends an inordinate amount of her time in incoherent Twitter beefs with Republican colleagues. One of which is embedded here. Shut up, Colonel Sanders. You're not even from Texas. More like the DMV. I don't know what's going on here. Chip Roy's career exists of working for politicians. What? Working for campaigns for politicians and being a politician himself, like she is. Unity Party all the way, which is why you will never hold anyone accountable. No one even knows what that means. But Colonel Sanders, what? I don't know. I guess she thinks he looks like Colonel Sanders. All right. That's where her head is when she's not impeaching people. And while Representative Nancy Mace has succeeded at her goal of being on TV all the time, she has really only defined herself as an empty-headed attention addict. She never could coherently explain why she joined 8 Republicans to oust McCarthy, even as she grabbed at every microphone to share her non-reasons. Her stunt of marching through Congress in a skin-tight Scarlet A t-shirt only reinforced the narrative that her only goal is getting on camera. Now her own staff has leaked internal documents to the Daily Beast that expose her as a politician obsessed with her public image and fixated on winning herself as much exposure as possible. That was the other piece that I had for you. It wasn't the Daily Beast version. It was the raw story version, and I think we can share that pretty quickly maybe afterwards, see what we're talking about. It all seemed so promising for these 3 women when they first came to Congress in January of 2021. Just combine the who me, innocent, sexy act of a pageant queen, where did that come from, with belligerence of the nastiest troll on Twitter, and voila, instant MAGA stardom. Activating the lizard brain bigotries of the GOP base works even better in conjunction with titillating their gonads, something Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes figured out a long time ago when they put a leg cam on Fox News so that male viewers could ogle the female anchors in their miniskirts. But it does seem that for these 3, the novelty of being Lady MAGA is wearing off rapidly. On the GOP side, their popularity is diminishing and the enemies' list is growing longer. Part of this is that their power to trigger the liberals is fading. The reactions they're getting are less outrage and more of the pointing and laughing variety. This must worry them as the strength of the MAGA celebrity is directly proportional to their perceived ability to offend. But ultimately, these 3 women seem done in by the impossible dilemma of trying to be a female leader in the deeply misogynist world of MAGA. There can be no doubting the ability of conservatives, aided by right-wing propaganda, to endure the cognitive dissonances caused by their own contradictions, from claiming Donald Trump as an honest man to justifying their own sadism in the name of Jesus Christ. But when it comes to gender, it really is hard to avoid the conflicts between the sexist expectations of the MAGA ideology and the lives of their provocative female celebrities. Put more simply, the Lady MAGA is expected to be sexy, to thrill the boorish desires of her Trumpian audience, but also chaste, to prove her Christian bona fides. She is soon supposed to be a loudmouth troll, which is the lingua franca of the movement, but also to remember that her role as a woman is to be accommodating, submissive, and placating to men. Paradoxical expectations bedevil most women in a male-dominated society, but the rest of us reserve the right to resist through feminist thought and protest. The entire point of being a conservative woman is the rejection of feminism. Even in the GOP world, where hypocrisy is the norm, it's a tough sell to be all for sexism unless you are the target. That's the most confounding contradiction facing the MAGA lady of all. She is there to justify the very sexism that's holding her back. Boebert's dilemma, of course, is the most obvious and hilarious. As historian Claire Potter wrote in her newsletter, Boebert's entire brand has been gun chick, a popular erotic figure on the right, who we might tentatively define as the slutty girl next door with a gun. The brand allows these women to technically be members of Congress, Potter noted, but they don't have to be taken seriously because it's all just a joke to their voters. She puts Green in the same category. I'd argue Mace also belongs, especially after the Scarlet Letter stunt. That she's pretending to be surprised just shows how much Mace is committed to the bit, because the only point in saying something so stupid is to capture that Christ what a bimbo coverage. It's reminiscent of how Mace gave a speech at the National Prayer Breakfast where she carried on about how she skipped sex with her boyfriend to be there, pretending to be too dim to know that was inappropriate. But of course, Mace isn't Marilyn Monroe playing a dumb blonde in a movie. She's a member of Congress and of a party that has constructed its identity around conservative Christianity that is obsessively sex negative. Mace herself just voted for Speaker Mike Johnson, a man who blames the sexual revolution for mass shootings, and whose wife equated all premarital sex with bestiality. Of course, none of these people are anti-sex for straight men. They love Trump and all of his shameless sleaze. The relentless efforts to ban abortion and restrict birth control show that it's women they want to punish. Women in MAGA land are expected to be sexy, but not sexual. Boebert is tripping across that impossible expectation, of course. She's on an apology tour trying to placate Republican voters who complain that her behavior is not Christian. They aren't talking about how rude she was either, since being rude to those urban liberals was always her major selling point. As Green, who hates Boebert now, women can't really be friends in the sexist environs of MAGA land, ranted on Twitter, it's the vaping groping, but Green herself doesn't have a leg to stand on. She dumped her husband with haste after getting to Congress and is now running around with a loudmouthed pig of a boyfriend. Green is navigating the contradictions a little better than Mason Boebert, who just seem pathetic these days. Part of it is that she was never quite as much a gun chick as the other two, presenting a mix that was heavier on the trolling and lighter on the cheesecake. But even so, her recent flailings suggest her act is getting a little threadbare. For the base, there was something initially thrilling about a woman performing the typically male role of the belligerent right-wing jerk, but as her recent erratic behavior shows, she's lost her Freedom Caucus buddies and her McCarthy squad has been pushed out into the snow. The GOP preference for women who are soft-spoken and submissive will always prevail. The MAGA movement would be nothing without misogyny. Male resentment over women's growing equality is what propelled Trump to victory over Hillary Clinton. Misogyny is the main MAGA recruitment tool, especially with young men. It's why ending abortion rights is their lodestar, even as it's incredibly unpopular. January 6th was an event where a group called the Proud Boys, wink wink, roamed Congress in hope of assaulting female Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Along with racism and queer phobia, hating women is central to the MAGA brand. Of course, there would be hard limits put on how far women could go with this movement. Not that anyone should pity them. They sold out other women for their own gain, making this a case of just desserts. Okay, and I told you I had one other piece to add to this, and we'll just really quickly go over the raw story summation of things. Narcissistic playbook issued to GOPers staff aims to promote celebrity status, according to a report. That report, I guess, by the Daily Beast. Matthew Chapman summing it up over at Raw Story. An extensive staff handbook for aides to Representative Nancy Mace has been obtained by the Daily Beast. And it reveals that the Congresswoman obsesses extensively about her public image and demands a quota of time that she should be appearing on TV. According to politics reporter Jake LaHotte, I don't know how he pronounces that, but a strategy memo that she wrote in 2021 describes her as, quote, the freshman thought leader on federal issues, just any federal issue, and added Nancy is thoughtful and hardworking. On important issues, or issues important rather, to the low country, it encourages staffers to use the nickname National Nancy. You ever heard it? I mean, I know people in that district. Anybody ever heard anybody say, yeah, she's National Nancy? It's working great strategy. The handbook given to aides demands that her office circulate at least one press release per day, no matter what, right? That she be booked on TV at least 1 to 3 times per day or at least 9 times per week. 9 times. And that they help her file 25 new bills a year and pass 10 bills out of the floor of the House annually and have 1 bill signed into law annually, which means, of course, a 10% success rate. You pass it in the House, you should have a better pass rate than that. Anyway, notably, all the sections clarifying how to boost her national profile take up much more space than the sections on providing constituent services. According to Lehout, the one former aide to Mace said they found themselves constantly asking, are we in a PR firm or working for a member of Congress? Another said, she talks about principles and standing up for the people, but at the end of the day, all she cares about is maintaining her weird C-list celebrity status by any means necessary. Mace, who emphasized her rise from a high school dropout working at a Waffle House to the halls of Congress, great, was one of 8 Republicans who provided the deciding votes to remove Kevin McCarthy. You know about that. Oddly, Mace said she rejected McCarthy in part due to his unwillingness to compromise on women's issues, but then voted to confirm Johnson, despite the fact that he called for up to 10 years hard labor for anyone who performs abortions at any stage for any reason. During her stints on TV, Mace has also been caught making contradictory claims to various anchors, depending on the audience. In late 2021, for example, she gave an interview opposing COVID-19 vaccines on Fox News, and then just hours later gave another interview on CNN urging everyone to be vaccinated. So, I don't know. Hopefully you caught that down in her district, but this is a new and weird twist. Just basically showing, how shallow she really is. Okay, time to roll it on the other piece that I've had standing by, and I got to switch over to the other soundboard. I ran out of room on this. So, shift in focus, but a good story. Glad you brought it up, and glad you're contributing for the first time. We'll let you introduce yourself. It's Seth. It's Seth Chipman, everybody. But okay. Anyway, like I said, shift in focus to the constitutional sheriffs movement and some not so surprising allies that the movement has got. But we've heard about the constitutional sheriffs before. We've read stories. Rosalind's brought it up, I think, a couple of times as well. Let's get new contributors. It's Seth Chipman, right, on the record here. Oh gosh, I hope I have it right now.
Good morning, David.
Good morning. Hi, Seth.
KITM fam. My name is Seth Chipman.
Got it.
I am a daily listener of the show, Patreon contributor, and have always wanted to submit some content, but I never got around to it, and then I woke up this morning, saw this article, and thought I would put it on the record for you all.
All right,
so this
welcome.
is a piece from The Guardian titled U.S. Sheriff Lauded for, quote-unquote, Constitutional Ideology shows ties between Trump Republicans and law enforcement. The subheader reads, Hard Right Claremont Institute, led by Jeff Sessions, will honor a sheriff involved in a state probe of jail deaths. The byline goes to Jason Wilson, and let's get started. The right-wing Claremont Institute will present its 2023 Sheriff Award to California Sheriff Chad Bianco, a former member of 2 far-right Patriot Movement groups and whose Riverside County Department has been branded a quote-unquote disaster by local media amid criminal allegations and a state investigation into death rates in its jail. Bianco's award will be presented by the former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who served in the Trump administration just before the commencement of Claremont's 2023 Sheriff's Fellowship, a secretive annual program that experts say coaches law enforcement officers in far-right constitutional sheriff ideology, which posits that their authority overrides that of the federal U.S. government. I also wanted to bring the story to your attention just because we haven't heard about Jeff Sessions in quite a while. I think other than maybe mixing him up with Pete Sessions once or twice recently. But yeah, let's go on. Sessions' involvement shows the increasing merger of far-right groups and thought with the Republican Party under the influence of Donald Trump, who remains the overwhelming favorite to win its 2024 presidential nomination. Devin Burghardt, the executive director of the Institute for Research and Education on Human Rights, which monitors and researches extremist groups, said that Bianco was one of the many sheriffs who use far-right constitutional sheriff mythology to paper over law enforcement abuses of power. Burghardt added, the Claremont Institute's efforts to elevate far-right sheriffs like Bianco continue a trend that started during the pandemic, the mainstreaming of constitutional sheriffs mythology. In an email last month, the Claremont Institute invited subscribers to the 9 November, remember this is The Guardian, dinner at the Hilton Hotel in Huntington Beach, California, which, quote, will honor the work of longtime patriot and tireless defender of America's founding principles, Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, unquote. The advertised ticket price is $450, and the dinner comes 2 days before the start of the Sheriff's Fellowship, set for November 17th, and for which no physical location has yet been made public. The Claremont Institute has been described as the nerve center of the American right, coming to greater prominence after the senior fellow John Eastman became one of the main faces of Donald Trump's effort to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Eastman has since been indicted alongside Trump and 17 others in Georgia in a prosecution related to those efforts. In recent months, The Guardian has reported on Claremont's links to the hard right, including board chair Thomas Kleigenstein's calls for a, quote, war on, quote, woke communists. Claremont's support of a secretive men-only lodge founded by, I remember this, a would-be warlord and some Claremont fellows' promotion of authoritarian red Caesarism as a solution to what they see as a decadent U.S. In response to a request for comment on Bianco's speech, Claremont's senior communications director, David Barr, wrote in an email that the Institute is pleased to honor Sheriff Bianco, who won re-election last year in Riverside County with nearly 60% of the vote, with our American Sheriff Award. Barr added, Sheriff Bianco's fidelity to the Constitution and his desire to restore the principles of the American founding to their rightful, preeminent authority in our national life is something we think worth celebrating. The Guardian also contacted Bianco for comment, but received no response. While Claremont prepares to honor Bianco, the Press Enterprise, the newspaper of record in Riverside County, last month described his administration as a, quote, complete disaster in an editorial, citing a long string of incidents involving deputies and lawsuits arising from a wave of deaths in custody in the county's jail system. Bianco is a defendant in at least half a dozen lawsuits filed on behalf of people who died while incarcerated in Riverside County's jail system, including 3 filed last month, according to media reports and federal court records. The plaintiffs include the family of a transgender woman who was placed in a cell with a sex offender who murdered her. In that case, deputies took an hour to notice that the homicide had taken place. In 2022 alone, 18 people incarcerated in Riverside County's jails died, the largest number of deaths in the county's system since 2005. Another 9 people died in custody this year, according to county records. In February, California's DOJ announced a probe into in-custody deaths in the county. The Guardian emailed the department to ask about the status of that investigation, but received no response. Meanwhile, several deputies have been arrested for alleged criminal acts carried out while they were on duty. In September alone, 3 correctional deputies who staffed the county's troubled jail systems were arrested and charged with serious crimes. 13 September, Brent Bishop Turnwall was arrested after being discovered under the influence of and in possession of a drug while on duty at a jail. On September 16th, Christian Heidecker was arrested and charged with extorting 4 incarcerated women and sexually assaulting one of them. On September 17th, Corrections Deputy George Alberto Oseguera Roca was charged after being arrested with more than 100 pounds of fentanyl in his car. Shocking that he's alive. He was allegedly working for a drug trafficking organization. Wow. Last April, meanwhile, Riverside County narcotics investigators allowed a suspected drug trafficker to escape with nearly 60 pounds of methamphetamine they had used in a failed undercover sting. And in August, Riverside County paid $136,000 to an older couple whose house was searched without a warrant in August of 2021. While Bianco has been criticized locally over his performance in office, which has been feted and courted nationally by the far right over his anti-immigrant stance. In June, immigrants' rights groups criticized Bianco for being one of only 2 California sheriffs to sign a letter circulated by Republican presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis, which announced a quote-unquote coalition of sheriffs, quote-unquote, united in the struggle to keep our communities safe from the ravages of our collapsed southern border. Bianco was a Claremont Sheriff's Fellow in the inaugural intake in 2021. He also has had associations with far-right patriot movement groups, the Oath Keepers, and the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, which we have heard about many times on the show, CSPOA. When the Oath Keepers experienced a data breach in 2021, reporters discovered Bianco's address in leaked email information. Bianco said at the time he could not remember joining in 2014 when he was a lieutenant in RCSD and did not attend any of the group's meetings. He nevertheless defended the group even in the wake of their participation in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol in 2021. Oath Keepers founder and leader Stuart Rhodes was sentenced to 18 years in prison on charges of seditious conspiracy. We know that, becoming one of 14 Oath Keepers imprisoned over their role in the Capitol riot. Bianco is also reportedly a supporter of the CSPOA, an organization founded in 2011 by Richard Mack that holds that sheriffs should refuse to enforce state and federal laws which they deem unconstitutional and which rallied members against enforcing public health measures during the COVID-19 pandemic. Commenting on Bianco's Claremont honor in his Substack newsletter, the journalist and criminal justice commentator Radley Balco wrote that Claremont was celebrating a sheriff who has not only tolerated abuse and overseen rampant misconduct, he's also just really shitty at his job. He isn't making Riverside County any safer. So that is all I've got for you today. Thank you for listening. Just to give a little plug, you all, David puts out so much content. What is it, 30 hours every month of just free, funny, awesome listening. And everyone should really, really be willing to throw a couple bucks to Patreon. I'm a Patreon contributor. And also, Netroots Radio makes all this possible, so why don't we all go and, buy a coffee's worth of donation for them as well. Hope you all have a great day, and that's all I've got. Back to you, David.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us this time, Seth. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the plug too. Yeah, I think we do about 20 to 22 shows a month, and they're 2 hours a piece. Not all the content is me, I guess. So yeah, I'm providing, I guess, about 30 hours. Greg's providing hours too, but yeah, I guess about 40 hours monthly for the most part. So okay, thank you for the plug, thank you for the contributions. By the way, that gives me a good opportunity. There's not that much time left in the show to thank Nick Laughlin for joining us as a new Patreon sponsor just the other day, although I have a feeling that like he may have been in and out at some point earlier, but if not, welcome for the first time, and if so, then welcome back. But maybe I just feel like I hear the name Nick Laughlin from time to time, or some other Laughlins perhaps, but I appreciate your support. Thank you. Just joining us just yesterday, I think. So welcome or welcome back, as the case may be. And as we head out for the weekend and prepare to turn things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, of course, just wanted to add to the record. I mentioned to you some time ago, but we never really read the story about Colorado taking up the 14th Amendment disqualification case against Trump at some point. And then that there was one or another of the cases where there was a holding from the court that maybe it just didn't apply with respect to the primary ballot, but it could be an issue that was ripe for consideration in the general election. That, I think, in researching, appears to be from a ruling in Michigan. I didn't even know that there was a Michigan case, but it also turns out that there is a Minnesota Supreme Court case, and I guess they actually decided at the Supreme Court level to dismiss the insurrection clause case there. So we're just not at the ripe moment, although I am a little bit worried about the possibility that they may delay the ripeness issue until it's too late or nothing can be done, or now we're too close to an election, or he's been nominated and what the hell is the party supposed to do? I think it was probably unwise for them to duck the issue. But once again, not the most efficient way of dealing with this. And sometimes there are these sort of dead letter clauses, I guess, in the Constitution, so long as the courts decide they want to duck them for any opportunity that they can get to do that. Okay, lots of things we didn't get to, of course, but hey, it's the weekend, and of course, we wanted to leave a few things for Justice Putnam to talk to you about, like, for instance, let's see, starting off today's show, the highest court in the land, you know which one that is? Not the guys who are high, but the highest court in the land cannot have the lowest ethical standards. It's a good bumper sticker, too. And also, Jezebel magazine has been shuttered after 16 years, just as major layoffs rocked the company. Big story in that one. A federal judge has temporarily blocked Idaho's abortion trafficking law from being enforced, while a lawsuit challenging its constitutionality is underway, and a class action lawsuit alleges unsafe conditions at a migrant detention facility in New Mexico. That's a big roundup of stories from around the country. I tell you every day that there are stories from around the world. Let's see if we can sneak in one or two of them after this.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Here's the international segment. Turkey is marking its centennial, but a brain drain has cast a shadow on the occasion, and Apple might end up on the hook after all for billions of euros in back taxes to Ireland in the latest twist in the long-running European Union dispute. Well, lucky charms for all, I say. See you next week.